Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my review of Captain Underpants. So Captain Underpants was one of my favorite book series growing up as a kid. I can't even remember how many of these books, and I loved them. I thought they were super fun, super silly. But, of course, this was a very much elementary fandom that I had going on here. And when DreamWorks announced that they would be doing a Captain Underpants film, I actually was quite a bit worried at how the humor and how these crazy, just really silly, really out there stories would translate into a full-length featured film. But the trailers kind of won me over. They seemed like a good, solid, fun time. And that's pretty much what you get with this movie. I enjoyed myself with Captain Underpants. So let's go ahead and start with the positives. I really think that this movie has a lot more heart than you might anticipate with such a silly premise. I loved so many of the things that they covered in this film, and they covered a lot of things. First of all, we're going to start with just the point of view this movie has. This film is told from the perspective of kids. So everything we see is from the perspective and from the imagination of these two young boys. And what I loved is the way that their thinking works and how that translated into this film. So they're told they're going to be in separate classes, and that's like the end of the world to these boys. And I thought that was just really fun and really accurate. Small things like that just seem so huge when you're in this age group. But I also love that they put these two boys in this like romantic trope friendship. So obviously there was no romance there. I mean, these are elementary school kids. And there was never implied romance. But losing your best friend is like losing your partner. I just really loved the dynamic they created between these two boys, and I thought it was really progressive, really wonderful. I love that we had, two different races represented in our two main characters. So I just loved everything about their friendship, and I loved everything about their point of view, because that also translated over into the comic book sequences. So you see their train of thought just kind of like wandering as they're writing these comic books. They're just like throwing in dolphins. Let's throw in that. Let's give this a try. And it really spoke to the need for creativity, the need for imagination, the need for kids to be able to express themselves, and how important that really is to children. And then I loved that their bonding was through their sense of humor and their creativity. When asked, what would you change about the world, they respond with something, like, I would turn the Pacific Ocean into chocolate. And it's just like, that's very much in line with elementary school students and something that they might say. So I thought it was all really, really fantastic. I also loved what the film had to say about our education system and our school system. I thought that was a wonderful kind of sub-message that was in there, really speaking about how detrimental it is to take the arts out of schools, how to suck that creativity and any kind of fun doesn't make for a good learning environment. And then I loved the teachers just being like, let's have fun with history. Memorize these dates. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. Again, just kind of like blasting our education system, and then the villain gives like a real front-loaded, scathing comment about that as well. So I thought all of it was great. I also do think there's a good message in here about laughing at yourself, and a little bit about bullying, but I'm actually going to put that bullying one in my negatives, because I'm a little bit worried on how it actually is going to translate and is actually going to come across. But this movie is also right in line, right on trend with current films aimed at teenagers, at younger audiences, where the storytelling mediums are a completely different medium than the rest of the film that you're telling. So we've seen it a lot in like live action films where all of a sudden it's animated when they're writing or when they're telling stories. We saw it with DreamWorks recently with Boss Baby, where they completely changed the style of animation when they were like playing in Imagination Time. And in this movie, they actually go through quite a few different types of storytelling mediums when they're writing their comic books or when they're talking about being separated. We have everything from like sock puppets to flip book animation. So they have a lot of really, really creative ways to tell these like little sidestep parts of the story that I do think is wonderful. I really do think this is a fun, wonderful trend. And I think the animation in this movie is really nice as well. It has that kind of Peanutsy feel where it's not fully like 3D Boss Baby type of animation that we see, not the real super polished. It just has kind of a more simplistic look, a little bit of charm to it. And I really enjoyed the style of animation as well. And then finally, I do think this movie is funny and inventive. So there were some like funny, witty little moments. Like I thought the final action sequence was really fun. So I think it's entertaining throughout. But now let's go ahead and get into the negatives. The first thing I didn't love about the film was how meta and breaking the fourth wall it was. I think it got too into its own head and too into that concept. I wish they kind of just would have went a little bit more conventional with the storytelling. I think it tried to get a little too cutesy, a little bit too edgy for its own good, and I think it kind of slowed things down and took us out of the story too often. I mentioned earlier that they touch on bullying a little bit in this film. However, I don't think they were quite direct enough. So we get to a point where somebody is made fun of for their name to the point that they start doing bad things. And ultimately, the end message there is you need to learn to laugh at yourself. We start to get an apology, but it's kind of backtracked on and taken back almost. And, that character is told, you just have to learn to laugh at yourself. While I think that is a nice message, I'm worried at the bullying message that was present here. And I think they should have made it a little bit more clear. You shouldn't be making fun of people for things they have no control over. You shouldn't be making fun of people for their last name. They didn't give themselves that last name. It's a family name. You shouldn't be making fun of people for wanting to get good grades. You shouldn't be making fun of people for doing all of these things. So I wish they would have just been a little bit more direct and not push that to the side. I think the ultimate message with that character kind of turned out to be a negative one. And I think there are a lot of messages in this movie that kids can misconstrue. And that's what I'm a little bit worried with this film overall. I think there's a lot of things in here that are definitely much more aimed at the parents and at teachers and at adults of like, this is maybe why your kids are acting out, or you have to give them creative outlets, this, that, the third. But I don't think the movie really rectifies the fact that these kids do some very dangerous and harmful pranks to people in the school, and they pass it off as, well, we don't have any other way to let out our creativity. I mean, we're kind of stuck in this stuffy environment. And again, that's not really a great message to send the children, because I'm not sure they're going to understand the sub-context underneath, because it's hidden. It's not in your face. It's not on the top. So I appreciate all the different layers of messages that this film was trying to get across. However, I'm very curious to see how those messages translate to smaller children. There's also a lot of juvenile, like really low-down juvenile humor. One bit with some potty humor, I thought they got really inventive with it, like a musical number type thing with it, that I actually thought, okay, if we're going to use potty humor, I'm glad you elevated it a little bit. You got creative, you got fun. But I think they dipped down into like ridiculous humor a bit much. And I think that they do such a good job with like character development and really establishing this friendship. But there are decent little stretches of the film where nobody really in my theater was laughing. So that's definitely a trade-off that they chose to go with. I think maybe just ultimately this wasn't like the laugh out loud riot fest we were kind of anticipating. So overall, I think Captain Underpants, the first epic movie, has a lot to be really excited about. It has a lot of innovation. It has a lot of really fun things. I do think that there are some worrisome things and some not so great things in there as well, but the good outweighs the bad. So for family fare out at the moment, I'd say definitely give this a full price ticket. I think your kids will have a great time. I think there's enough in there that adults can kind of chew on and dig through and laugh at with these deeper conversations and deeper jokes and more sophisticated situations that are underneath that surface level silliness. So I'd give this a full price ticket. So that has been my review of Captain Underpants, the first epic movie. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, click like down below, and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on our latest videos. Also, join in on the discussion. Are you excited to see Captain Underpants? And did you read these books as a kid? If you did, are you excited for them to be adapted? And if you never did read them, is this just like a what in the world are they doing in Hollywood moment? Let me know either in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!